Hey everyone. So today I'm going to be continuing on the discussion that Jessica started about The Sisters Brothers by Patrick DeWitt. In 2011, Patrick DeWitt's second book was published to critical acclaim and acquired a pretty vast readership. Despite DeWitt's Canadian roots, this novel is set in the United States, particularly in Oregon and California. Jess pointed out that despite being born in Canada, DeWitt now lives in Oregon, and prior to that he's lived in various other places in the United States. And so she posed the question, did DeWitt in his childhood fantasize so much about the American myth and American culture that he ended up setting his adult work and even his life in America? And that's a totally valid question, because here in Canada we are inundated with American culture and media due to proximity and also similarity of cultures. So sometimes it's hard to understand where the line really is. Canadian media can often be overshadowed by the American media that kind of rises up, and because of that the lines are pretty easily blurred. However, when asked by Nigel Beale of the Bibliophile about his Canadianness, DeWitt said, "I have a green card in the States. I'm not a citizen there. I'm still a citizen here, and I have no plans to become a citizen there. I wouldn't rule it out. I just don't see any reason for it now. I've married an American, and I've sired an American now. I can't deny that I've spent many years in the States, and right now I consider Portland my home, but I wouldn't say that I consider myself an American." To build upon that, he happens upon the idea of fixed regionality in his work in the Grant New Writing interview in 2011. He says, "The question of whether or not I'm addressing America in my writing only comes up with people outside of America. When my first book came out in translation, several overseas journalists wanted my confirmation that I was spotlighting the decline of American society, which in writing the book never once crossed my mind. I can't imagine ever addressing a society, any society, intentionally. My thoughts are with the characters only, and perhaps they're a reflection of this or that society, but that's not for me to consider." In the case of The Sisters Brothers, I think the setting was a necessity for the story that was being told. While cowboys did exist in Canada, it isn't a part of the Canadian myth as much as it is the American myth. In the case of Where He Calls Home, I think that's just the direction his life went. Roots inform your perspective, even if one day you end up leaving that place. Should I ever move to the States, which is becoming more and more likely, I'll always be Canadian and consider myself to be Canadian. Like, I'll never be American. And I hope that in my writing and in my music, I'm still able to claim that Canadianness, no matter where it is geographically that I'm situated at the time. In numerous interviews, DeWitt states that the novel sprung out of two words: sensitive cowboys. Jess did such a great job of outlining the characters and their relationships and their motivations, and if you haven't watched her video, you should go watch that now, because I'm about just to build on that. Eli and Charlie's sisters are the protagonists, the cowboy assassins, and they are the sensitive cowboys. And we're told the story by Eli, who is the more sensitive of the two. And from the start, in making Eli and Charlie more sensitive than the average cowboy, DeWitt begins to subvert the genre of the Western. In a Globe and Mail interview, DeWitt says, "The impetus for The Sisters Brothers was it occurred to me that there was no neurosis in Westerns, or there was a minimal amount of it." Again, in the Bibliophile, he says, "When I realized I was writing a Western novel, I was upset about it. I didn't want to remind anyone of the things we already know about Westerns. I didn't want it to be one of those books that you're told every fact that the author turns up at the library." The conventions of the Western are undermined again and again by DeWitt. Charlie is constantly sick from drink. Eli has an open fear of spiders, snakes, and crawling things. Eli's care for oral hygiene and Charlie's fascination with fine clothing, all of these things subtly undo what people think of when they think of westerns. These conventions and the stereotype of the silent, gruff cowboy are undone. The expressed emotion and elegant language of deWitt's writing also breaks down these conventions, because in life these characters would have likely spoken in a less educated style and used words like ain't. However, deWitt strove to use a heightened language to further express the deeper emotional sides of these characters. Language typically associated with the westerns can't always convey the isolation and introspective emotions that the sisters brothers are feeling. It is through the use of language that these characters come to life and make them extraordinary. Quotes like, "But I could not sleep without proper covering, and spent the rest of the night rewriting lost arguments from my past, altering history, so that I emerged victorious." Or, "It is hard to find a friend," I said. "It is the hardest thing in the world," he agreed. And one of my favorite pieces, Mayfield said, "You asked what I was thinking. Well, I will tell you. I was thinking that a man like myself, after suffering such a blow as you men have struck on this day, has two distinct paths he might travel in his life. He might walk out into the world with a wounded heart, intent on sharing his mad hatred with every person he passes. Or he might start out anew with an empty heart, and he should take care to fill it up with only proud things from then on, so as to nourish his desolate mindset and cultivate something positive anew." And this one I picked out specifically for Jess is the convention of the cowboy having his trusty, mighty steed. In deWitt's novel, Eli has Tub, who is not described as like being the worst horse. In fact, right at the start he says that Tub would be a fine horse for another man. But for Eli, Tub does not make the partner that most cowboys have with their horses. Again, in the bibliophile, deWitt shares this little anecdote where he says, "I was in Ireland doing an interview, and the first thing the interviewer said when she sat down was, 'So, would you say that Tub is the hero of the book?' Which is something I would have never thought of, and in its way it's a true thing, or if it was for her then it's true. I'd never really viewed Tub as a heroic figure until she brought up that, and since then I've sort of thought of him as a heroic figure in the book." As for the supernatural elements in the book, I cannot figure them out at all. Like, is the witch and the girl the same person and like manifesting themselves in different ways? I don't know. Crotty? Anyone? What do you guys think? I know in the comments some of you guys have talked about how you've read the Sisters Brothers, and so I would love to know if you have any insight. I sort of want to read it again because it's such a great book, but I want to be able to like read it very closely, kind of know what's going to happen already, so that I can pay finer attention to the details like that and see if I can find any connections, because like, I don't know. I really don't know at all what's going on there. What's going on? And to those of you who have read the book, you've commented before saying you've read the book, lend us your insights. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this book. I loved it. I thought it was extraordinary, and I couldn't believe that I hadn't read it before. I was really glad when Jess sent the email to Crotty and I saying that that was her pick, because it had been on my bookshelf forever, and I'd heard how good it was, and I'd never read it. So I'm very glad to have finally read it. And in a few weeks, we will actually be starting our August pick. And so if you'd like to read along with our videos, the pick for that month is a book called The Year of Finding Memory by Judy Fong Bates. So this was my pick for August, and the video will be up the first weekend of August. So I do encourage you guys to check it out, read along with us, and comment and get involved, and we can't wait to have a discussion with you. So leave your thoughts on the Sisters Brothers below, and otherwise, I guess I'll see you guys soon. I can't wait for Crotty's video. I think she's going to have a lot of really cool things to say, like usual. So look forward to that. That'll be up soon. And otherwise, thanks for spending time with us, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye. hey, my name's Jason, and I'm learning to speak.